Hey everybody, it's Brandon Lake, and I'm here with my dad, Mac Lake, and we thought it'd be really special to bring you a podcast talking about family, life, leadership, creativity, and much more. Welcome to Generational Leadership. So one of the most maybe depressing things about being your son is that you look like a chiseled Greek god at 61. I'm 32 and trying to get my act together. But the dad I'm looking at right now does not look anything like the dad of my childhood. And obviously a ton has changed, and it's been, well, first of all, I have to say, I'm extremely proud of you.
Thank you.
You've set such an example for me in so many areas of life. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot about and have talked about leadership and faith and going after your dreams and conquering that mountain. But one of those mountains has been, for you, health.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing for you to set that example for me because I've changed some things recently in my life. And I don't look like the Brandon that I did even just a few years ago.
Yeah.
But you came up in here this morning with your goat milk, and I came up here in my oat milk. I'm not a goat milk guy yet.
I'll get you there.
You might have to get me there. But every time I come over to your house, though, you're eating something different and new, and you've cut out so much. But what sparked the health journey, and how do I end up looking like you at 61?
Well, hey, I'm proud of you because at 31, when I was your age, I looked like Pillsbury Doughboy. And at 40, I looked like worse,
How do you get worse than Pillsbury Doughboy?
Oh, gosh, it was bad. And I was standing on the front row of a church service at Carolina Forest, and I was getting ready to go up to preach. And they showed a little slideshow thing before I spoke. And there was a guy on the screen, a chubby guy on the screen. I literally turned to Mom and said, "Hey, who's that?" She said, "That's you." I went, "That's not me."
No way.
That is not me. And it was at 40 years old, I was overweight, I was tired, but the change happened not so much because of the way I looked. I didn't like that either, but that wasn't the primary motivation.
Yeah.
Primary motivation was Monday through Friday, I was coming home from work, and you and Jordan Bree would want to play.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted.
Would I have been around the same age my boys are right now? All they want to do when I get home, and which has been a huge motivating factor for me, is I get home and I'm exhausted, or I get home from tour, or I get whatever, and the first thing I want to do every single day, play.
Let's go play.
Wrestle.
And that's the way you were. And I didn't have the energy. I would literally, there were days I would lay on the couch. I would take a ball and throw the ball and say, "Go get it."
Been there, done that.
I would
play fetch with your children.
Play fetch with the kids. I would make up games, hide and seek. I would say, "Let's play hide and seek," and I would go hide, and I would hide in the hardest place. And I'd close my eyes and try to take a nap.
Because you don't even have the energy to be the seeker. You're like, I'll hide.
Yeah, exactly. And so I knew something had to change.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine gave me a book called Body for Life, because I told Mom, I said, something's got to change. I can't go the rest of my life like this.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I was experiencing a little bit of depression at that point too. And I said, something's got to change, but I don't want to do a diet.
Yeah.
I want to change a lifestyle. And so I did. I changed my lifestyle drastically.
Wow.
And I told her, I said, 1 year from now, I'm going to preach a sermon series on health, 4-week series on health. But I have to have 1 year under my belt of living it. Otherwise, I won't have credibility.
Okay. I'm so glad you said that, because I noticed the other day, and I'm not trying to call anyone out, but I do think that there's something there that, like, living that season before you try to step up and talk about it.
Yeah.
And I was noticing just the other day some topics about health for somebody who, And again, social media,
Yeah.
it's not reality. So maybe they've been, but it very much looked like, okay, they worked out 3 times and then the new sermon series about health. So you thought it was really important to live in that season for a year.
Yeah, absolutely. And people saw a physical difference and an energy difference in me. And so many young leaders are seeking a platform without earning the credibility first and putting the work in to gain the credibility. And I have so many people ask me questions like, how do you get where you're at with the consulting and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And just live it until people start asking you questions.
Yeah.
That's when you know. Don't try to force your way there. And so I was like, I didn't want to force my way into influence there.
Yeah.
I had to live my way into influence.
Yeah.
And when you live it long enough and you gain the credibility, people start coming to you and asking questions. So that was my journey. And I was like, okay. So 1 year from that point, I had lost 40 pounds. My energy levels went up. I cut out the 4 Mountain Dews a day and
4 Mountain Dews.
Yeah. Putting sugar. When I was in middle school, this big old kid, big old muscle kid, he said, man, the way you gain weight is you put sugar on your cereal. So I put 6 spoonfuls of sugar on my cereal. And that was just a habit that I developed. So I was pumping my body full of sugar, which was destroying my health. And I didn't realize it. So that's
peanut butter and jellies, right?
Peanut butter and
jellies and Mountain Dew.
Oh my gosh! I did a sermon one time, and I gave what I would typically eat in a day back then, and I had a container this big. That's how much sugar I would go through in 1 week. 1 week. Wow. And sugar is so destructive to our health. The Western diet is destructive to our health.
Yeah.
And it just wreaking havoc on so many people.
Yeah, if you kind of open up that, it's almost overwhelming. Brittany and I have been on a journey. In a way, again, I don't have the credibility that you have. You've been living this for years, but Brittany and I are starting our journey, and it's like it can be overwhelming. If I had any encouragement, we've not arrived, but we've started somewhere. Yeah. It's like, okay, let's just cut out as much bread as we can.
Right.
Let's cut out as much sugar because it's insane when you start to really look at everything that is available for us all around. Like it almost at times feels impossible to be really, really healthy.
Yeah.
How have you, again, like someone said to me the other day, if it's sitting in your cupboard, like your pantry, you probably shouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
It's like you want to eat fresh, or you talk like fruits and nuts. Obviously, some things in your pantry you can, but he's like, if it's in a box, most likely it's pretty bad for you. But for somebody who is like, okay, maybe they're not drinking 4 Mountain Dews a day, but like I want to take one step. Like how has the progression of this happen? Was it all that? Obviously, it was a moment of a change. Like you saw that picture and you're like, okay, who was that? Like, that was a catalyst, life-changing moment. But how does somebody like start going after that and not feel completely overwhelmed?
It's progressive. It's baby steps. You learn one thing, you take a step. You learn something, you take a step.
Yeah.
And then with fitness and nutrition, the benefits are so strong. I mean, you can literally begin to experience a difference in 3 days. Wow. You can begin to feel physically different. And then if you stick with it 30, 40 days, all of a sudden, it really makes a difference. But I think most people have to baby step their way. And we always look at willpower and motivation. I just don't have the motivation. I don't have the motivation. Yeah. If you want to increase your motivation, you have to increase your education. So here's what happens. When you begin to, you go, I know sugar's bad for me. I know processed food's bad for me. Study it.
Yeah.
Find out why.
Yeah.
Find out why. Dig into the why, and the why will drive your what.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you put the education on top of the motivation. You go, you can't get me near certain stuff.
Yeah.
And how do you have that type of motivation? It's not the motivation, it's the education. It's what I know it will do to me.
Yeah.
Is why I go, I'm not touching, hey, that stove's hot, I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
you know?
This is why I refuse to research what's in a hot dog, because I love hot dogs too much. I don't want to know. I think I know. But I love the baby steps thing, and it actually reminds me of a story I heard someone say, and I don't know who this is about, but they said a guy wanted to start getting in shape. And so he did it. Maybe this even came from you. He didn't just go to the gym and start working out. What he did is he got in the car.
Yeah.
He drove to the gym. He parked the car in the parking lot, sat there for a second. He went home.
Yeah.
The next day, he did the same thing. The next day, he did the same thing.
Yeah.
Then he drove to the gym, walked in the door, literally walked out.
Yeah.
Like walk in, walked out. Then after doing that a few times, then he's like, okay, I'll do one machine, or I'll do one muscle group or something like that. You know, that, so you get the idea of the story.
Yeah.
But I think why it's so hard to dive in is it feels so overwhelming for me at times. It's like, I'm just not even going to start. But if you can just start with one thing, if you can, I love that. It's like he developed the discipline of just getting there.
Yeah.
Just making it a regular routine in his life, his day to day, to where it became easier and easier to just do the very next thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Baby steps key.
Baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Building those small habits. Because I do think we look at the elephant and go, oh, I got to eat that whole elephant.
Yeah.
Instead of taking one bite at a time.
I've tried to look at what are keystone. I think Andy Stanley talks about keystone habits. And a keystone habit is the thing that triggers that next good habit that you want to implement. And he said, I think he said it could be as easy as like brushing your teeth in the morning, you know, or making your bed. Let's take making your bed, because everybody should brush their teeth.
Right, yeah.
But making your bed, you might not be somebody who makes your bed, but let's say you want to start becoming more, disciplined in other areas. Like making your bed may actually make you want to do dress a little bit nicer that morning. Be more presentable, or whatever it could be. But I think for me, I've noticed that there are certain things that I will have a more productive day. I'll have a more healthy day if I start it with those very simple things. They add up.
Yeah, and here's the secret too, is if you implement a discipline, it takes willpower. It takes a lot of effort, right? Even if it's a small discipline.
Right.
But after a period of time, the discipline, it jumps a barrier. It's what I call the discipline to habit barrier. So it switches in your behaviors from a discipline to a habit. Now, habits are automated.
Yeah.
I mean, you brush your teeth every day, not because you're disciplined, but it's a habit.
Wow.
And so, same thing with fitness. You know, there are fitness and nutrition habits I have now. Those aren't disciplines. They're not. They used to be.
You're right.
One at a time. And that's the thing. Over 20 years, I mean, I read 2 to 3 health books a year now.
Wow.
Trying to always learn something new. But it's been a 20-year journey. It was probably 10 years into the journey I'd learned, oh wow, the American, the U.S. meat system. Meats are injected with hormones, and chickens are eating corn that have, genetically modified stuff on them. And I'm like, I didn't know that. Wish I'd known that 10 years when I was 40, when I started this journey.
Yeah. I
would have progressed faster, but I didn't know. But I gradually get the education, and it gradually makes a transformation.
Makes me think of my buddy who, his life-changing moment when it came to health was him watching a documentary. And he, to this day, he said he'll go back and watch it again and again. He says he watches it and he cries every single time.
Wow.
It hit him that deep. How just absolutely disgusting, not only the food is, but how animals are being treated as well. And that's a whole other thing we don't want to get into.
Yeah.
But it hit him to the core. He quit his job and he started working at a farm. And he's like, I want to live this lifestyle. I want to learn it. I'm going to change everything. And he looks quite different now to this day as well. But so not only do you physically look better, but you talked about you were feeling in that season of your life, eating all of that stuff, you felt depression.
Yes. Yeah.
And it attacks your mind, your emotional management system.
Yeah.
It attacks so much. That's something that I've recently, and not just because of food, but because of life experiences,
Yeah.
I've started to use the word depression for the first time in my life in the past 3 years.
How did that accumulate in your life? How did you
Yeah.
get to that? Because your whole life you've been Mr. Optimistic.
Yeah.
And
Right.
can do anything, go nonstop. I mean, that's just you. Always a smile on your face. And then a year or two ago, I hear you use the D word. That you're
exactly.
depressed. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? You?
Yeah.
What happened? I mean, I know a little bit of the story, but I'd love to know more.
Even to this day, I'm like, I don't want to claim that word. And I think there's a spiritual thing to that too. Like, and I don't know that I was ever depressed, but I was starting to feel depression coming on. And luckily, because I've had amazing role models and counseling, I knew to quickly talk about it. But this was a kind of battle, one I didn't see coming. And it was nothing I'd ever experienced before. Like you said, very happy person, content,
Yeah.
So a few years ago, I signed with a record label for the first time. I've been a local worship leader most of my life. I haven't done anything bigger than that. I think that's as big as it gets. I mean, I think that my heart is still there, and I'm still a local worship leader, and that will never change. But there were some things happening in my life, some opportunities, and I signed with this record label through just all these songs that I had been writing. So exciting. That led to me almost immediately assigned. It was like within weeks I jumped on this Bethel tour with Bethel Music. Heroes of mine. I can't even believe I'm in the room with them.
Yeah.
And they throw me on this tour. And it was amazing. Around the same time, I get invitations to write with so many of my heroes. And so, I mean, you would have thought I was, just on speed. I'm just like, it was like drugs. My adrenaline is just firing. I'm like so excited. I'm having the time of my life.
Every week you would text me or call me, and I would look at Mom and go, I can't believe what he just experienced. It was just unreal string of pearls laced together, but you're saying it also created pressure.
It created pressure. And, I've heard it said that your body doesn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress.
Yeah.
It just knows stress.
Yeah.
So while I'm having the time of my life, there's other things happening, and I've got to believe chemically too, you know? And so tour was amazing. These writing sessions were amazing. And all of this happened within a span of a few weeks. And I'm coming home from tour. For whatever reason, we thought it would be a bright idea to take the family to Disney. We meet y'all. I meet y'all there. You're in Disney.
Yeah, that's right.
Mike and Bree are there, and Brittany and the boys are there. And I meet y'all there. So I have zero time to decompress. I have zero time to talk this out, talk about what I just experienced. But I'm also exhausted, physically exhausted. Some people think Disney is heaven. I think it's hell. So we were, not only am I experiencing all this, but I just went into it was the perfect storm. I get there, I have no time to talk to Brittany and really catch up and process. And so I'm coming off this massive mountaintop, multiple mountaintop experiences, and I just go into this quickly. And I didn't even really recognize it. How it started was these wild thoughts would just come up in my mind, and I kind of ignored it at first because I'm like, I should be happy. Like I'm living all my dreams right now, right? And then these insecurities would creep in. And as soon as I got home, and then I started believing things about myself. I've started thinking in ways I've never thought, like being completely, vulnerable. I even had a low moment, and y'all, this is like a span of a few hours, like a few days, and I'm already thinking, like, should I just leave this earth? Like, I'm miserable. Like, I think my family, like, it only took a day or two for me to even have the thought, would they just be better without me? Does anybody love me? Am I even seen? We'd be having conversations like around the house, and I would try to say something, And just because maybe I didn't say it loud enough, I would immediately think, no one wants to even hear from me. Wow. No one wants to listen to me. I'm not even here. They don't even see me. Like the craziest stuff, right?
Wow.
So then we're putting the boys to bed one night. I'm like, I've about had it. I'm like, I'm going crazy. I don't recognize myself. And Brittany's putting one boy to bed. I'm putting the other boy to bed. And I reached out to two of my buddies. And I had too much pride to even call them. I texted them. I said, guys, I don't know what's going on right now. I've been home for a few days, not even home, but like been here for a few days. And I don't recognize myself. I'm not myself. I'm freaking out. And I feel like I'm about to just crash or do something crazy. And they're trying to call me. Yeah. And I too much pride. I hit hang up, wouldn't answer it. And I'm still like also trying to put the boys down. And my buddy sends me a voice text praying over me. And Micah, who, if you hang around me long enough, you're going to hear about Micah, one of my best friends. And he's just been a godsend. And I listened to the voice text while I'm laying with one kid in bed. And as soon as he's just praying over me, man, I could like cry even right now thinking about just that feeling of feeling all of the weight and the craziness. And in that moment, it broke. I broke, but in a good way. And which led to confession, which led to me. I hadn't shared any of what was going on with me with Brittany. Yeah. I kept it myself. And that's one of the biggest things the enemy wants to do is isolate you and keep you in that constant, panic and you believing all of those lies. And so what happened was I started crying and Brittany looks over at me from the other twin bed and goes, Brandon, what's going on? Are you okay? And I literally fetal position. Yeah. She came over and she just held me and I just wept. Yeah. And it felt like 1,000 pounds just boom, just off of me. Yeah. And that was an amazing feeling. But I was wise enough to know that's probably going to come back. That feeling, those thoughts are going to come back if I don't deal with them. Yeah. And that's when I realized I have to have somebody to talk to. And not only Brittany, but I probably should talk to a professional about this. And I began to meet with Chip, my counselor, my therapist, if you will, and he gave me language to understand what was happening. Yeah. Adrenaline fatigue. I had come off the road and I had no more adrenaline. And what that happens is it attacks your emotional management system, your pain management system, and talking about health, it attacks your immune system. Yeah. So like you can easily, if you're somebody on the go and you don't give yourself time to rest, you will get sick. Yeah. And for me, it just manifested to becoming mentally sick and not having a true north. I couldn't find true north. I was just, and so I began to talk with him, and he gave me language for that, which that brought about so much freedom, and then helped me with some tools to make sure I'm combating that. He said it was like, Brandon, you are basically shooting heroin for a few weeks. Yeah. And then you have to cold turkey. Yeah. That's what that lifestyle was doing to you. And now you have to come home. And we've got to figure out ways to make that mountaintop and that valley, we've got to even that out. Yeah. And make sure when you're coming home, you're experiencing how to help you stay at a really healthy pace. Yeah.
What are things you've done to even that out to where because it's God's way of slowing us down. Yeah. It's a physical built-in system. It's a warning system. Yeah. And anytime we experience emotions like that, the first thing we need to do is pay attention to the emotion and process it through the truth, God's truth, because Satan loves taking emotions and holding up the lie, platforming the lie. Yeah. And God's going, no, I want to take the emotion and expose you to the truth of my character to transform you. What are some things you've done?
One phrase I can't get away from, and it's been so helpful for me, is this tool I learned from a pastor that I served under for a season, Daniel Floyd. He spoke this message, and it was like, it literally, I hadn't thought about it until I went through this, and it came back to me, and it was called Recognize, Replace, Repeat. Recognize, replace, repeat. And he kind of used this funny illustration about, he's like, all right, to the crowd, he's like, I want you all to think about a pink elephant, So you're picturing a pink elephant. He said, stop thinking about a pink elephant. Mm-hmm. at some point, within a second or two, you're still thinking about that pink elephant.
Right.
When those lies were screaming at me, I could not just stop. I couldn't stop not thinking about them. It consumed me.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, think about a purple giraffe. And then you're starting to think about a purple giraffe. And he's like, it's impossible to just stop thinking that lie.
Yeah.
So you have to replace that thing with what God says.
Yeah.
So in that season, like never before, I would remind myself in seasons past, like who God says I am. But it was like in this season, I was clinging on to who he says I am. And I would have to replace that lie and then repeat. And to be transformed by the renewing of my mind, it's like I had to meditate on positive things, meditate on who I am in Christ. And then I think another one is community.
Before you move on, though, I think there's a lot of people who struggle with the emotions, the anxiety, the depression. And they go, I know what God's truth is.
Yeah.
So we acknowledge God's truth, but we don't personalize God's truth. I know God loves me. I know God's full of grace. I know all that.
Yeah.
I know all that.
Yeah.
Well, take it deeper.
Yeah.
Take it deeper. Personalize it. Look in the mirror of that truth and analyze. And we can acknowledge without personalizing God's truth. And when God's truth is acknowledged and not personalized, there's no depth to it. There's no transformation to it.
No. Yeah, it's so easy to take those scriptures as a word for someone else,
Tell me about community, because this is an interesting passage. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick.
One of the things that Chip actually had me do was personalize. And he said, I want you to take out a sheet of paper and I want you to ask God what he thinks about you.
Whoo!
If that does not rock your world, it's the most awkward thing ever at first. And it takes you a little while to, because the first answers are usually like real churchy,
Yeah.
I started like, he says, I'm more than a conqueror, he's like, I'm a royal priesthood, And then he's like, no, like, what does God think about you? Dang it. I don't hear churchy stuff when I'm just talking to God and I really hear his voice. It's not these grand things.
Yeah.
It's very personal and it's very elementary. One of the quickest things I hear God say is, I like you.
Yeah.
I like spending time with you.
Yeah.
I think you're funny.
Yeah.
And the power of making it personal. Like he's got to be a personal God. And hearing his voice, not just his voice to the church, his voice to me, what he says about me, which it takes some discipline. It takes some work to like get through those Christianese answers.
It does.
But if you can like really try and really hear him, it'll change your life.
Yeah. Personalizing, like, what does God like about me?
Yeah.
And listing that.
I bet he likes the way you look.
Yeah.
And I have to constantly, I think I'm a cool looking person. It's also one of my biggest insecurities is the way I look.
Yeah.
And he loves how I look. He loves how he created me.
He created you.
He doesn't want you drinking 4 Mountain Dews a day.
Right.
But he loves how he designed you.
Yeah.
And even just knowing that, hearing that.
We've been raised in Christian culture to judge ourselves based on performance. I'll never forget Brianna. I coached Brianna's basketball when she was 5. And I was on the sidelines coaching her game, and she was running up and down the court, and she stopped and she put her hand on her hip. She pulled out her lip gloss and she put lip gloss on right in the middle of the game. She was terrible. Never scored a point, never threw a pass. I mean, she didn't want the ball. She looked cute, but she was terrible. But I love watching her play basketball. But here's the deal. It had nothing to do about her performance. had everything to do. She was my child.
Yeah.
It wasn't her performance that mattered to me.
Yeah.
It was that she was my child. And I got to look while other parents are probably going, what's wrong with that kid? Why does that coach have that kid on the court, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going, that's my kid. I'm proud of her right now.
Yeah.
I love watching her.
Yeah.
And what everyone else would have judged as poor performance, I don't care. I'm not looking at performance. I'm looking at her being.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying her being, her personhood.
I've bought a few pieces of art in the past few weeks. I've just gotten really into it. And, you know, it's not thousands upon thousands of dollars, but it's like, okay, art's expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
And if my house was burning down, you better believe I'm going to run into the corner where all the art supplies is, where my kids keep their drawings. And I will 1,000,000%, I'll let those other professional pieces of art burn before I let my kids' horrible looking shark and house, and they drew cleats the other day. They're obsessed with sports, and they drew this, and I thought that is the best cleat I have ever seen drawn because it's my kid. Yeah. And that's how God looks at us.
Yeah.
You know.
So the anxiety, you addressed it from a faith perspective, finding God's truth. For me, I don't even know if you know this, but just before my health journey started, I was pastoring Carolina Forest, and I was in a depression, and it was bad. There were times I would go out and I would preach in the first service. I would go back in my office. I'd lay on the couch and pray for the second return of Jesus Christ, so I wouldn't have to go preach the second service.
Come back now.
I was like, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And it felt fake. I would have to go out there and I would preach my heart out, but it was taking everything in me to lift that up. And there was a counselor that worked out of our church, and I was talking to him one day, and I was telling him, I said, man, he said, how you doing? I said, I'm facing spiritual warfare, man. And I told him all about it, and he went, no, you need to go to a doctor.
Wow.
Because I was like, I'm depressed, but I'm not depressed over anything. Life is good. I love my family. I love my job. I love everything. But I'm depressed. And I can't figure out why. And so I think so many people take anxiety and depression and they fight it from the faith aspect, but they don't fight it from both fronts. They don't fight it from the fitness aspect. We have to have an air war, which is our faith, and we have to have a ground war, which is our fitness and nutrition.
Wow.
Because the American Western diet wreaks so much havoc on especially our gut health. It produces so many other problems, and a lot of it is depression and anxiety. And you know, part of the thing that motivates me is, you know, I look at my mom. Mom turned 90. I just went and did her 90th birthday. And we had a great time with Mom. You know, she's in the old folks home. But, you know, we could walk out that door and walk right back in, and she'll go, well, hey, how are you? She had no clue we were there. I had no clue we threw a party, because she has Alzheimer's. And she's had Alzheimer's for about 15 years now. And this is one of the things that motivates me, is Mom's health span ended 15 years ago, but her lifespan continues. And one of my life verses is Deuteronomy 34:7. Moses was 120 years old when he died. And his eyes were not weak and his strength was not gone. And when I read that verse years ago, I was like, that's what I want. I want to give 100% till my last breath. God did not retire Moses because he was worn out and tired and, you know, achy knees and high blood pressure. He retired Moses, he said, because you finished your job. And you did it with full vitality. And I want to mimic Moses by going to my last breath with every sense of vitality I have. Mom and I, our little mantra is we want to die young at an old age.
I love
die
that.
young at an old age. And so every choice I make to eat or exercise, I'm making that choice for 90-year-old Mac, not 60-year-old Mac.
That's great.
So that 90-year-old Mac will turn around and go, thank you, thank you. Because I think that's how we cross the line with strong physical fitness and strong spiritual fitness. We've got to recognize
Wow.
that God created this body. God created this brain. And the United States is the leading, we're number one in Alzheimer's across the world,
Wow.
We're also number one in the worst diet in the
Yeah.
world. And there's a correlation there.
Yeah.
And so I just look at so many people struggling with anxiety, struggling with depression, and they're fighting it from the faith angle, but not the fitness angle.
Yeah.
And they feel like they still feel like they're losing. Because I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was laid up in fetal positions plenty of times too, crying
Yeah.
and going, I don't even know what I'm crying about.
Yeah, that was the craziest part is I don't even really know why I'm going crazy. Something's off.
Yeah. And so I think if people could understand this is a faith fight and a fitness fight, and God cares about the fitness fight as much as he does the faith, because he created our hormones.
Yeah.
He created our bodies. And if we eat, people ask me, what do you eat? I eat what God made.
Wow.
If God made it, I'll eat it. Let's just keep it that simple. If God made it, I'll eat it. But if it was injected with something the man made, I don't want to eat it.
Wow.
Because if God made it, it's good for my body. But if he didn't make it,
If God made
then
it,
my body has to figure out what to do with this. And so inflammation begins to fight the foreign bodies that I'm taking in and eating.
One of the things you said that I thought was so helpful in understanding why I feel bad or why I feel good when I eat certain things is you said food is information.
Yeah.
You told me a while back, and it was like so elementary. It's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
But when you're eating something, it's telling your body something.
And it's telling you everything you eat, you're either fighting inflammation or
Yeah.
you're fueling inflammation. And most of the American diet, you're fueling inflammation. And so all of these cells that are supposed to go to make you feel good and make your hormones strong,
Yeah.
they're having to go fight foreign objects in your body that weren't designed to be ingested. That's why you see so many health problems in this country.
Wow. Well, I'm grateful that you have gone on this journey, not only to be a great example for me, but it inspires me and challenges me every time you pick up my kids. And at times I'm laying out on the couch and I'm like, I don't have it. Like, where's the ball? I'm gonna go fetch.
Yeah.
You'll pick up my kids and you take them out and you run them to death. You play with them all the time. You're the most amazing grandpa. We call you Pops. You're the most amazing Pops. And you're doing an incredible job and at dying young. What'd you say?
Die young at an old age.
Die young at an old age. And this is generational stuff. You're not just making decisions that, like, when you decide to go on this journey, it's influenced me. Hopefully I will continue to work towards only eating, if God made it, I'll eat it. Like, only those things. And being disciplined for the sake of my boys. Like, I want my boys. There's a scripture that comes to mind, and I've kind of been using it for everything, but it's got me just so motivated. I want to be this. It says, Benjamin was a ravenous wolf. He devoured in the morning and divided the spoils in the evening, right? He devoured in the morning and divided the spoils at night. And I heard T.D. Jakes talking about that scripture, and he talked about how you only, have your youth for so long.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, you've got to get after it in your youth. He's like, if you wait to implement some of these disciplines, if you wait to attack and be a ravenous wolf in whatever area, let's take health and fitness, like you're not gonna have anything to leave behind, to divide. And I want to, in every area of my life, health, spiritually, financially, in these younger years, I'm asking the question, what is 60-year-old Brandon, I'm 32, what's even 40-year-old Brandon going to look back and look at 32-year-old Brandon and go, thank you for being ravenous about fitness. Thank you for being ravenous about spiritual discipline. Thank you for being, because really what we're talking about here is being a great leader, great leadership. And this is an area that I want to give myself away to my kids, to other people. I want to be a great leader in every single area. And if I want to have if you will, divide the spoils in my later years of life, I've got to set those disciplines and be ravenous about it today.